I don't know. All the stuff with Djokovic is weird, and it was Jeff Eisenband, who is one of the NBA 2K announcers, who I know a little bit. He posted a picture from like 2 days before before everything came out with Djokovic and Nikola Jokic together.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I did see that where they're like shaking hands or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden they both are positive, and it's
Right.
like, oh my god,
By the way,
what are we doing?
how good Joker looks incredible.
Yeah, but here's my thing. And as a larger guy in the NBA, especially, like his weight definitely, like, obviously you don't want to be overweight in that situation,
Which he
but there are,
was.
yeah, sure, but there are certain things that you use your body for. You get better positioning, things like that, a little more power behind him. He certainly leaned really, really far out compared to
Mm-hmm.
what he was. It'll be interesting to see though how that affects like the physical part of his game. Obviously, it's not going to affect like his passing and shooting and the things that he really excels at. But I wonder what that physical aspect of his game looks like when it comes to rebounding and things like that.
There's a trade-off for sure, but at the same time, a more athletic Nikola Jokovic is. I mean, you're talking about Nikola Jokovic. Jesus Christ, that was inevitable. Let's not kid ourselves. Nikola Jokic is just like his upside is astronomical, and another guy, Harden, lost a ton of weight too. Harden looks almost like emaciated.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't seen. I saw the one picture of him, but I haven't seen much recently. It's gonna be interesting to see when these guys do come back, and I know a lot of guys are already checking in. Teams have already gotten to Orlando, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be interesting to see what this 3 month break really does for a lot of these guys and how their bodies are going to look and how they're going to hold up. Like a guy like Harden who goes to the basket a lot and gets banged around a ton. How is that body with a lot less substance to it going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to take some of that punishment that he gets? It's got to be a big concern. I mean, I'm just as excited as anybody else for the NBA to come back, but there are those questions. And the guys that sit around and some of it may be tongue-in-cheek, but they give you the asterisk talk and this and that. I'm the complete opposite way on this. I think this is going to be one of the harder championships in NBA history. One, because of the weirdness of it, right? You're talking about being in like peak team and physical performance for the end of the season run. What was there, 15 games left per team, something like that?
Yeah, 17ish. Yeah.
Sure. And now you're basically like stopped for 3 months. You can't practice with anybody. You can shoot if you have a home gym or go to a park or something. I don't know. But then you're like, now you're like, all right, we're going right back in, and it's playoff intensity basically from minute one.
Oh, it's not going to be. Don't kid yourself.
It's
Especially for the teams that aren't really fighting for playoff position.
Well, those guys, of course, those guys aren't really going to be getting after it, but guys who want to get that team ready to go, like that, I'm just so interested to see how this is all going to work and how it's going to feel, and if it's going to be more like feel more like a summer league game to start, and then sort of slowly ramp up the intensity, or if we're just going full bore right into it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I don't remember, I want to say it was Albert Breer, but I'm not 100% sure who I'm going to attribute this to. But he tweeted yesterday that at what point are we going to start talking about the fact that all of these guys who get coronavirus now could potentially be a giant advantage later on? And I really do think that's interesting. Like, you have 3 or 4 Kings, Alex Len, Buddy Hield, Jabari Parker, and I think somebody else tested positive yesterday. You've already had at least 3 76ers test positive. Well, we just don't know who they are. It's fascinating because it's much better assuming that that the appropriate levels of antibodies are built up in the system to stop you from likely getting it again. I know there are certainly been instances where people have been diagnosed twice, but it seems like it's an anomaly to some degree, and let's hope so, because let's not kid ourselves, a vaccine is just a small amount of the virus, so we really need that to work. At what point is this a huge advantage for teams that, if you're the Kings, like, you don't have to worry about these guys getting sick again, and you could potentially be playing teams without some of their best players later on.
Yeah, it's one of the ultimate crapshoots, I think, of all time. And that's, unfortunately, to whoever made that point, whoever you saw it, like, that's just sort of the hand teams are dealt. Injuries happen. Coronavirus is going to be treated like any other injury. It'll be on the injury report. That's the way it's going to work. Like, any guy at any time could do anything physically to his body. Any guy at any time could get the flu. Like these, and obviously coronavirus, not the flu, different. It was just more of a comparison to injury reports and things like that. That's just kind of the luck of the draw. Will there be advantages? Sure. Did the Raptors have significant advantages last year against Golden State in the NBA Finals? Yes. Golden State's best player blew out his Achilles 9 minutes into game 1, and their third best player at that point during that game was second best player, blew out his knee at halftime or in the third quarter. Like, things happen. That's sports. It's it's something you're going to have to deal with, and it's advantages. It just is. That happens in every sport every year. Those types of things happen in the postseason. I mean, you talk about Eagles-Seahawks this year. Yeah. Eagles-Seahawks this year. Carson Wentz goes down, 6 plays into the game, 8 plays into the game. Those are the breaks.
I see what you're saying, but Carson Wentz's concussion doesn't also mean that, Deshaun Jackson, Miles Sanders, Lane Johnson, and Brandon Brooks could all also get that concussion from him.
Sure, it doesn't. But we're dealing in a very weird situation and weird world where we also don't necessarily have all of the facts. Well, and if that's the case, then we should have put every team in their own hotel. Every team should have their own hotel.
That's just not feasible.
But if we're talking about guys being able to get it, if a guy on Team A gets it and he's in the hotel with people, doesn't realize it, let's be fair. We'll say social distancing, etc. But there's still the ability to transmit.
There's not
going
to be social distancing. It's going to be minimal.
I was trying to give the benefit of the doubt, but yes, I agree with you. Like, that means that team or player A on Team A could give it to player B on Team B, and then we have 2 teams that are have 3 or 4 guys out because of it. So
okay, let me ask you a question. Will there be let's say, I don't know, who's a really, the Suns. The Suns are one of those teams, or the Wizards are a great example. The Wizards are a team that probably shouldn't be in the playoffs. Probably shouldn't be in this race. Let's say they go and we find out that Ish Smith has coronavirus, but nobody else knows yet. Is there any world where Ish Smith, the Wizards would have Ish Smith go hang around players on the Magic?
I mean, that's diabolical.
I know, but weird shit's gonna happen.
Of course there is.
I'm not blaming Ish Smith for anything.
No, I know what you mean for the example.
Literally the worst wizard I could think of. Andreas, whatever his name is, that 7'3" Latvian we drafted in 2016. Pachesnik or some shit like that.
I mean, yeah, you could. Anything can happen. It's sports. Like, it's people look for advantages. I mean, isn't there a guy in jail from the Cardinals who hacked into the Astros scouting system? Like, didn't we just have a giant? I mean, back before everything was super crazy, the Astros cheated their way to 2 World Series appearances and a title. Wasn't that the big thing? With a trash can, and there was potentially audio, or not audio equipment, but like wires and buzzers. Like guys are teams and people are gonna always go for advantages. It still amazes me that essentially they blame the Astros thing on like 2 people. They're like, yeah, it was Alex Cora and I don't know, 2 other guys from the Astros, and that's pretty much it. Nobody else had any say really. No. They just followed.
Yeah. No, they were fine with it. They were all completely against it, but worried about the repercussions of stepping forward. Will any player intentionally get coronavirus early on so that he does not have to get it later on?
Maybe. I mean, that's also a real possibility. It's like, all right, let me get this while we're working through these 8 games to finish the season for the seeding or whatever, and then I'll be prime and ready to go by the time we hit the beginning of the playoffs. And
especially now,
I'm set.
You missed 2 weeks now. Like, the Kings already have 3 or 4 guys. What's to say, Bogdanovich and De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley and those guys don't also just happen to get coronavirus right now? And all of those guys will be healthy moving forward. Yeah, assuming, there's obviously a giant risk here, and emerging data is really scary. especially with what we're seeing about what's happening to people's lungs with coronavirus. There is potentially I don't know if you saw this. It's horrifying. Potentially permanent changes to people's lungs, and that even includes 2/3 of people who show up asymptomatic. They're also seeing these issues with their lungs. It's like a cloudiness on an MRI. I forget exactly
That's
what
fun.
it is. Yeah, terrifying. Absolutely
I hadn't
terrifying.
seen that, but now I'll have anxiety attacks about it for probably the remainder of the week.
Well, sorry, buddy, but
I mean, I would have
go
seen
ahead,
it anyway.
go ahead and read up on that and read up on the data. But yeah, it's scary, and taking it a step further, it's even worse because unlike MERS or SARS, which only attacked one lung, coronavirus attacks both lungs. So you have even more issue for problems down the road. It's a scary thing, but it seems like we're just okay, it's gonna happen. We're gonna live with it, and let's move on. I do think basketball is gonna happen, even though the infection rates are horrifying. But luckily, that's going to improve pretty soon, as our president has decided the best way to beat coronavirus is to not test for it. So that's going to be good. Numbers should start to drop pretty soon, even though we saw the single highest rate of infections of any day in our coronavirus history yesterday, with 37,945 new cases. It is worth pointing out that while it was the biggest day for new cases, it was certainly not the biggest day for deaths. Only 688 Americans died of coronavirus yesterday. So hey, that's nothing.
It's a thing. Yeah, I mean, like there's it's sort of kind of what we talked about way at the beginning of all this. Like, what is the best option? And the best option certainly isn't to stop testing, because that makes to me one of the more illogical things I've ever heard.
Yeah,
but
defunding the NIH's research into a vaccine.
Yeah, it's like, I go back to the PGA guy from yesterday, and it's one of those things where you kind of have to, like, it's not going anywhere. You kind of have to learn to live with it, and how does that work? And treatments have to continue to be developed and things like that. And there are things that, from a therapeutical standpoint, like they're finding things that certainly help. And that's one of the reasons, at least I think. Maybe it's also from just who's getting it and whatnot. Like the percentage of people that are actually dying is going significantly down, etc. Which either way, any one death is terrible. But it's interesting to look at stats and things like that, because when you look at a state like Pennsylvania and you look at it, it's like, 93% of the people that died were in long-term care facilities.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm not in a long-term care facility. I don't know, like, am I supposed to be worried? Like, I don't know. So that's...
But I think it's personal risk. It's personal responsibility, right? Because while you're not in a long-term care facility, someone that you're close to, or someone that you're close to is close to, probably is. So what is the risk you're willing to accept for other people? And that's where we get in trouble, because when the whole mask thing. And by the way, if people haven't watched the absolutely ridiculous town hall in Florida yesterday.
Incredible.
Oh my God.
Incredible.
I was wondering why Parks and Rec was trending on Twitter, and it really was like any town hall meeting that they made fun of on Parks and Rec. It worse because it was real. Like, this is what the concern is, because these people, as soon as it became a thing where people realized that wearing masks was more about other people than themselves, it disincentivized people to actually wear masks, because we just inherently care about ourselves more than other people.
Imagine actively standing in front of doctors, legitimate doctors, and being like, I am questioning your credentials. What? Dude, what?
Yeah.
Like, it essentially all boils back down to the internet is the internet drives people's knowledge on things for the most part, and because you can get yourself into an echo chamber, you can essentially build your own belief system on everything that goes on. And like, I do my best to try and look at everything, to bring everything into perspective. But when you get somebody that like because the internet questions everything, people now question literally everything. So there's not you have a doctor in front of you, and you're like, you're not a doctor. Nah, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you're a doctor. Show me your credentials. Like, what? What are we doing
I
here?
respectfully encourage you to go back to school.
Yeah, congratulate. Yeah, what a line. What a line. Like, I would love to know what these people do and, like, what their professions are, because to sit there and openly question somebody that went to school for several years, like way longer than I could ever imagine going to school for, most likely because they're on some sort of city council, have probably been an active practicing physician for a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And then be like, well, listen, this random website that was created 3.5 weeks ago told me that this, and this is true about the disease. This, and this isn't true. I'm going with the website. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, that woman also evoked the devil, pedophiles, 5G, and a handful of other things.
I love the 5G thing. The 5G thing was the simplest debunk of all time, and I think it was a rapper, and I can't remember his name, but his tweet was like, coronavirus is in like 140 countries, 5G's in 5 of them. Somebody needs to explain to me how you could think that's a legitimate thing. And it's true. Like, but you watch enough videos, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Twitter, no matter where it is, you can get yourself to believe literally anything that you want. And I'm not saying I'm right about everything, or what I think is
Gregory,
what I think about
the whole
this
point
is
of
right.
this show is that we're saying we are right about everything.
Sure, but I mean in this particular instance, when it comes to the coronavirus stuff, because I've been overly cautious with things. There's no doubt about it. Probably too cautious if we're going to be realistic about it.
I don't think there is a too cautious right now. I really don't.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I mean,
but
barring taking it to like ridiculous levels, but just normal levels of caution are the best way to handle this.
I mean, I did build a bunker in my backyard. I'm not going to tell you how to get into it, but it is there.
Wait, I do not. This is bullshit. I want to know the code. Give me the code, or I want my copy of Jackie Brown back.
I mean, listen. I guess I'll have to FedEx it to you. This is a small. Now, believe me, if there was like. That's the kind of that would be too cautious. I think if you start getting into bunker building, you have to also it's the fact that they say they pretend like everyone is going to die if you get coronavirus, and that's clearly not the case. Like, it's clearly not the case. Is it a devastating disease? Absolutely. Can it kill you? 100%. Your odds of actually dying if you get it, probably not significantly high depending on your situation.
They're statistically low, but we don't know about the long-term ramifications yet at this point, and that's scary.
Sure, but people do things every day that have long-term ramifications that they don't give a shit about. Like, there are people that smoke every day. There are people that drink every day. There are people that spend 9 hours staring at their computer every day.
I know.
Those are I'm right there with you. But those are all sort of long-term ramifications that we don't think about and we don't necessarily always take into account. But when it comes to this, it's like when I see the word apocalyptic level numbers as a headline on a news website, and it's like, come on, man, like you're doing that simply to incense people. Like, let's take it down a notch when it comes to apocalyptic level of cases.
Yeah.
That's a weird word to use.
Well, and when we talk about stuff like that, I was a big fan of the TV show The Newsroom from Aaron Sorkin, and I thought they had a really, really good point that they made on it, wherein the biggest mistake the government ever made when they gave these news channels the right to give these companies the right to use their airways for free, with the concession that they have to provide an hour of news every day. The biggest mistake that was made there was not also saying that, but on this hour of news you cannot advertise anything. Because if you don't need the viewers to advertise to draw in eyeballs for advertising dollars, it's going to be a more balanced newscast. And that's just not what we have. We have Fox News, who believes Donald Trump has done nothing wrong, CNN, who believes Donald Trump has done nothing right, and a lot of people who fall to one side or the other.
Yeah, I mean, people don't actually watch news; they watch entertainment. That's what those channels are.
So SportsCenter is now too.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this conversation many a time over the past couple of months with friends and different things like that, and it's like yeah, that's not news and information. That's somebody telling you something with a tiny bit of a slant so they can get more viewers to watch it and be like, yes. And here's my crazy headline that got me when you say apocalyptic numbers, and I click on it, and there's your ad revenue. Like they do things to build things up in a way to where it's like, oh, we can make more money because there's more people viewing it, there's more people clicking on it. It's not about actually giving you accurate information. It's why everything's so dang confusing.